Free my dad! I'll make you see! The entire courtroom froze. A young woman stepped forward, tears streaming down her face, pointing directly at the blind judge. You heard me! Free my father, and I'll make you see again! A wave of laughter spread through the courtroom. Even the prosecutors smiled. The judge slowly lowered his head behind his dark glasses. My child, he said calmly, I've been blind for 12 years. The world's best doctors couldn't help me. What makes you think you can? The girl didn't move. I don't think. I know. The laughter stopped. Her father, standing in an orange prison uniform with handcuffs on his wrists, shouted, Emily! Stop! Don't do this! But Emily ignored him. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small sealed envelope. This envelope contains the truth, not only about my father. She looked directly at the judge. But also about the reason you lost your eyesight. The courtroom fell into complete silence. The blind judge slowly stood from his chair. For the first time in 12 years, his hands were shaking. What could possibly be inside that envelope? The judge carefully held the sealed envelope in his hands. You claim this explains why I lost my eyesight? Emily nodded. Yes, Your Honor. But before you open it, I need one promise. The prosecutor immediately objected. This is outrageous. A defendant's daughter cannot make demands in court. The judge raised his hand. Let her speak. Emily took a deep breath. If you discover I'm telling the truth, you'll reopen my father's case. The courtroom whispered. The judge remained silent for a few moments. Agreed. He broke the seal. Inside were old medical reports, several photographs, and a faded hospital ID card. The judge's fingers suddenly froze on one photo. Where did you get this? His voice was no longer calm. Emily answered quietly. It belonged to my mother. The judge clenched the papers. Impossible, she died years ago. Emily shook her head. No, Your Honor. My mother worked at the hospital where you had the surgery that took your eyesight. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. My father was the security officer there. He saw something that powerful people wanted buried forever. And now they're trying to silence him by sending him to prison. The judge slowly removed his glasses. For the first time in years, he began questioning everything he believed about the day he went blind. Who were the powerful people Emily was accusing? The judge ordered a 30-minute recess. No one was allowed to leave the courtroom. Court officers locked the doors as reporters gathered outside, desperate for answers. The judge turned toward Emily. You said your mother worked at the hospital. Tell me everything. Emily took a deep breath. My mother, Sarah Collins, was a surgical nurse. 12 years ago, she assisted during your emergency eye operation. That night she saw doctors replace your original medical file with a fake one. The courtroom erupted. The prosecutor slammed his hand on the table. Objection! These are baseless accusations. Emily calmly pulled out an old USB drive. My mother copied the hospital's security footage before she died. The judge's face tightened. You have the footage? Yes, Your Honor. But my father hid it because the people involved threatened to kill our family. Emily looked toward her father in handcuffs. He stayed silent for 12 years to protect me. And now those same people have framed him for murder. The judge slowly gripped the edge of the bench. If this footage is real, then my blindness wasn't just a tragedy. It was part of a much bigger crime. The courtroom became silent as the judge gave one order. Bring a computer into this courtroom. Right now. No one knew that the next video would expose a conspiracy that had remained hidden for 12 years. A laptop was placed on the evidence table. The entire courtroom watched as the old USB drive was plugged in. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a folder appeared on the screen. Operation Vision, Confidential. A cold silence filled the room. Emily clicked the only video file. The recording showed the hospital hallway from 12 years earlier. Doctors rushed the blind judge into the operating room after his accident. Everything looked normal. Until one man in a black suit entered the frame. He wasn't a doctor. He unlocked a cabinet, removed the judge's medical file, and replaced it with another. The timestamp matched the exact night the judge lost his sight. The judge's hands tightened. "I've never seen this man before." Emily nodded. "My mother did." She paused. "She secretly photographed him before he disappeared." Emily pulled another photograph from the envelope. The judge couldn't see it, so the court clerk held it up for everyone. The prosecutor's face suddenly turned pale. His breathing became heavy. He whispered, "No, this can't be possible." The judge noticed the change immediately. "Mr. Prosecutor, why do you look like you've just seen a ghost?" The courtroom turned toward the prosecutor. And for the first time that day, he had no answer. What secret was the prosecutor hiding? The prosecutor slowly stood up, forcing a nervous smile. "Your Honor, I've never seen that man before." Before anyone could respond, Emily spoke. "Then why were you meeting him last week?" The courtroom froze. Emily pulled out another photograph. This one was recent. It showed the prosecutor walking into a private office with the same mysterious man, older now, but unmistakably the same face. The prosecutor's confidence vanished. "That's fake," he shouted. Emily shook her head. "It came from the building's security cameras." The judge turned toward the bailiff. "Verify the image immediately." Within minutes, the court's digital forensic expert examined the file. He looked up. "The metadata is authentic. There are no signs of editing." A wave of whispers spread through the courtroom. The prosecutor's forehead was covered in sweat. Emily pointed toward her father. "My dad wasn't arrested because he committed a crime. He was arrested because he recognized that man. My father tried to report him to the police. But before he could testify, he was framed for murder." The judge's expression hardened. He struck the gavel. "From this moment, this court is opening an investigation into possible evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and judicial corruption." Just then, the courtroom doors burst open. A federal investigator walked in holding an arrest warrant. He looked directly at the prosecutor. "Don't move." The entire courtroom stopped breathing. The federal investigator raised the arrest warrant. "Michael Harris, you're under arrest for obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and tampering with evidence." The prosecutor backed away in panic. "This is a mistake. You have no proof." The investigator placed several documents on the judge's bench. "We've been investigating this network for 3 years. But we never knew who ordered it." He turned toward Emily. "Until she sent us an anonymous package last month." The courtroom stared at Emily in disbelief. The judge asked quietly, "You contacted federal investigators?" Emily nodded. "I knew no one would believe an 18-year-old girl. So I mailed copies of every document my mother left behind." The investigator continued. "Those documents exposed a secret group inside the hospital. They accepted millions of dollars to perform illegal surgeries, alter medical records, and silence anyone who discovered the truth." Emily looked at her father. "My dad tried to stop them. He refused their money. That's the day our family became their target." The judge slowly lowered his head. "For 12 years, I believed my blindness was just bad luck. But someone stole my sight. To protect a criminal empire." Just then, the investigator received an urgent phone call. His face turned pale. He looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, the man who planned everything has just entered this courthouse." The courtroom doors slowly began to open. The courtroom doors swung open. An elderly man in an expensive black suit walked inside, surrounded by 2 attorneys and private security guards. The moment Emily saw him, her face turned pale. That's him. My mother called him Victor Kane. The federal investigator nodded. Former chairman of St. Gabriel Medical Center. Victor smiled confidently. Interesting story. But stories don't convict people. He calmly placed a thick folder on the prosecutor's empty desk. Your Honor, every accusation against me is based on assumptions. My hospital has saved thousands of lives. The courtroom murmured in agreement. Then Victor looked directly at Emily. You've risked everything for your father. But are you willing to risk your own life? Her father immediately shouted. Emily! Don't answer him. Victor's smile disappeared. He reached into his briefcase and removed a small glass vial. 12 years ago, this experimental treatment could have restored your eyesight. He placed it gently on the evidence table. But someone stole it before your surgery. The blind judge gripped the edge of the bench. What are you saying? Victor looked straight at him. I'm saying, someone in this courtroom made sure you stayed blind. A chilling silence filled the room. The judge slowly turned toward everyone around him. For the first time, he didn't know who he could trust. Then Emily whispered one sentence that changed everything. I know who stole the medicine. Emily's words echoed through the silent courtroom. I know who stole the medicine. Every eye turned toward her. Victor Kane let out a quiet laugh. Be careful, young lady. One false accusation, and you'll destroy your father's last chance. Emily didn't flinch. She reached into her backpack again and removed a small silver locket. This belonged to my mother. The locket looked ordinary. Until she pressed a hidden button. A tiny memory card slid out. The federal investigator immediately took it. What's on it? The judge asked. Emily's voice trembled. My mother recorded a secret conversation the night before she died. The recording began playing through the courtroom speakers. A man's voice filled the room. Destroy the medicine, and make sure Judge Anderson never sees again. Another voice replied. What about the nurse? The first man answered without hesitation. If Sarah talks, she doesn't leave the hospital alive. The courtroom gasped. Emily wiped away her tears. That was my mother. The investigator paused the recording. His hands were shaking. We've just heard evidence of conspiracy to commit murder. Victor Kane remained strangely calm. Then he smiled. You only heard a voice. You still can't prove it was mine. Before anyone could respond, the courtroom doors opened once again. A gray-haired woman walked in on a cane. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, Mom! The entire courtroom stood in stunned silence. The woman slowly stepped into the courtroom. Emily's tears wouldn't stop. Mom! I thought you were dead. The woman hugged her tightly. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I had to let the world believe I was gone. The courtroom watched in complete silence. The federal investigator helped her to the witness stand. Please state your name. My name is Sarah Collins. I was the surgical nurse assigned to Judge Anderson's operation 12 years ago. Victor Kane's face lost all color. This is impossible. Sarah looked directly at him. No, Victor. What's impossible is hiding the truth forever. She reached into her handbag and placed a sealed folder on the evidence table. These are the original surgical records. The ones you ordered destroyed. The investigator quickly examined the documents. His eyes widened. Your Honor, these files contain signatures, fingerprints, and payment records. They prove hospital officials accepted millions of dollars to replace your treatment with a failed experimental procedure. The courtroom erupted in shock. Sarah turned toward the judge. You were never supposed to lose your sight. Someone wanted you permanently blind because you were about to sentence a powerful crime boss. The judge's hands trembled. So, my blindness was planned. Sarah nodded. Yes. And your operation was sabotaged. Just then, Victor Kane suddenly grabbed the evidence folder. and sprinted toward the courtroom exit. The bailiffs rushed after him. But before they could stop him, a gunshot echoed through the courthouse. The gunshot echoed through the courthouse. Everyone dropped to the floor. Victor Kane stumbled forward, the evidence folder slipping from his hands. A court officer tackled the masked shooter before he could fire again. The courtroom was in chaos. "Secure the building!" the federal investigator shouted. Within seconds, armed officers surrounded the gunman. Sarah Collins looked at him and froze. "I know him." The investigator turned. "Who is he?" Sarah took a deep breath. "He was the hospital's head of security 12 years ago. He helped destroy the evidence after the judge's surgery." The officers removed the gunman's mask. Gasps filled the courtroom. It was Daniel Brooks, the same security chief who had disappeared without a trace years earlier. Victor Kane yelled from the floor, "Don't let him talk!" But it was too late. Daniel slowly raised his hands. "I'm done protecting you." The courtroom fell silent. He looked directly at the blind judge. "Your Honor, I'm the man who switched your medical file. And I was paid $5 million to make sure you never regained your eyesight." Emily's father closed his eyes in disbelief. The judge gripped the bench so tightly his knuckles turned white. Then Daniel spoke the words no one expected. "The medicine that could restore your vision was never destroyed. It's still hidden." The courtroom erupted once again. Where had the life-changing medicine been hidden for 12 long years? The courtroom stood frozen. Daniel Brooks lowered his head. "The medicine wasn't destroyed. I hid it." The federal investigator stepped closer. "Where?" Daniel looked at the blind judge. "The night of your surgery, I couldn't go through with Victor Kane's final order. So instead of destroying the treatment, I locked it inside a secure evidence vault beneath St. Gabriel Medical Center." Victor Kane shouted. "He's lying! Don't listen to him." Daniel ignored him. "The vault can only be opened with 3 keys. I kept one. Sarah Collins secretly took the second. The third belongs to the hospital's board of directors." Sarah slowly reached into her purse and placed a small brass key on the evidence table. "I've protected this for 12 years. Daniel removed a chain from around his neck. Hanging from it was an identical key. "I've carried this every single day," the judge asked quietly. "If both of you have the keys, who has the third?" The courtroom became silent. The federal investigators slowly looked toward the public gallery. An elderly man in an expensive suit quietly stood up. "I do." Everyone turned in shock. It was Judge Anderson's own younger brother, Thomas Anderson. The judge's face went pale. "Thomas." His brother looked down in shame. "I never wanted this to happen. But Victor Kane owned me." The courtroom erupted in disbelief. Had the judge's own brother betrayed him for 12 years? The courtroom fell into complete silence. Judge Anderson could hardly speak. "Thomas, you're my brother." "Why?" Thomas wiped tears from his face. "It started with gambling debts. I owed millions. Victor Kane offered to erase every debt if I gave him the third vault key." The judge clenched his fists. "You sold your own brother's future?" Thomas nodded in shame. "I thought they only wanted to delay your treatment. I never knew they planned to blind you forever." Victor Kane laughed bitterly. "You were all so easy to manipulate." The federal investigator stepped forward. "Enough." He handcuffed Thomas. "You'll answer for your role in this conspiracy." Thomas looked at the judge one last time. "I'm sorry. I've regretted it every day for 12 years. The judge remained silent. Then he spoke calmly. "Justice doesn't change because we're family. If you're guilty, you'll face the law like everyone else." Emily looked at the judge with respect. For the first time, she believed her father might truly be saved. The investigator held up the 3 brass keys. "We finally have them all. If Daniel is telling the truth, The medicine that could restore Judge Anderson's sight is still inside the vault. Everyone hurried towards St. Gabriel Medical Center. But when they reached the underground vault, the massive steel door was already standing open. Someone had gotten there first, and the life-changing medicine was gone. The underground vault was empty. The steel shelves had been cleared. The special refrigerated case that once held the medicine lay smashed on the floor. Daniel Brooks stared in disbelief. No. We were too late. The federal investigator searched the room. Whoever came here knew exactly what they were looking for. Then Sarah noticed something beneath the broken case. A flash drive. The investigator plugged it into a secure laptop. A video appeared. Victor Kane was on the screen. He smiled at the camera. If you're watching this, you've already found my vault. He held up a small silver container. The medicine is with me. But there's something none of you know. He leaned closer. This treatment wasn't created just for Judge Anderson. It can restore sight to anyone with his condition. Emily whispered. He stole hope from thousands of people. Victor continued. If you want the medicine, meet me tonight at the abandoned Riverside Observatory. Come with the police, and I'll destroy it forever. The video ended. The room fell silent. The investigator immediately said, It's a trap. But the blind judge stood up. I've waited 12 years. I'm going. Emily stepped beside him. So am I. Her father shook his head. It's too dangerous. Emily looked at him with determination. He took your freedom. He took the judge's sight. Tonight, he loses everything. No one realized that Victor Kane had already prepared one final, deadly surprise. That night, police vehicles stopped nearly half a mile from the abandoned Riverside Observatory. The federal investigator whispered, No one moves until we know where Victor is. But the blind judge shook his head. If he sees the police, he'll destroy the medicine. Emily stepped forward. I'll go with the judge. Her father protested. No! He's expecting a trap. Emily looked at him. If we do nothing, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. The judge placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll finish this together. They slowly entered the old observatory. Moonlight poured through the broken glass roof. Then a voice echoed through the darkness. Welcome, Judge Anderson. Victor Kane stepped into the light, holding the silver container in one hand and a remote control in the other. You came exactly as I expected. The judge remained calm. You have the medicine. Victor smiled. Yes. But this building is filled with explosives. He raised the remote. If anyone tries to stop me, this place disappears. Emily noticed something behind Victor. A small green light was blinking on a metal box. It was counting down. 9:58, 9:57, 9:56. Emily's heart raced. She realized the bombs had already been activated. They had less than 10 minutes to save the medicine, clear her father's name, and escape before the entire observatory exploded. The countdown continued. 9:12, 9:11. Victor Kane held up the silver container. One step closer, and this medicine is gone forever. Emily looked around the observatory. There had to be another way. Then she noticed an old maintenance staircase leading to the upper platform. Quietly, she whispered to the federal investigator through a hidden earpiece. I can get behind him. The investigator replied. Be careful. If he sees you, he'll trigger the explosives. Emily slipped into the shadows. Meanwhile, the blind judge kept Victor talking. You destroyed lives for money. Victor laughed. No, Judge. I built an empire. People paid billions for treatments. If you had regained your sight, everything would have been exposed. Slowly, Emily climbed the rusted staircase. Each step creaked beneath her feet. Victor suddenly stopped talking. He frowned. Did you hear that? The room fell silent. Emily froze, barely breathing. After a few tense seconds, Victor shrugged. Probably the wind. Emily exhaled in relief and reached the platform directly above him. She looked down. The silver container was only a few feet away. The countdown flashed. 5 o'clock, 4:59. Emily knew she had only one chance. If she missed, they would lose the medicine, and none of them would leave the observatory alive. The timer flashed. 4:21, 4:20. Emily steadied herself on the platform above Victor. One mistake would cost everyone their lives. Below, Victor tightened his grip on the silver container. You've already lost, Judge. Even if you arrest me, your eyesight is gone forever. The blind judge remained calm. You underestimate the truth. Victor laughed. The truth doesn't matter. Power does. At that exact moment, Emily jumped. She landed on Victor's back, knocking the remote from his hand. The silver container slid across the floor. No! Victor shouted. The investigator rushed in with 2 agents. Victor fought wildly, throwing punches. Meanwhile, Emily crawled toward the container. She grabbed it just as Victor broke free and lunged at her. Before he could reach her, Emily's father stepped between them. You'll never touch my daughter again. Victor swung a metal pipe. Emily's father blocked the blow, but fell hard to the ground. Emily screamed. Dad! The investigator tackled Victor, and after a fierce struggle, officers finally locked handcuffs around his wrists. The remote was recovered. A bomb technician quickly examined it. His face turned serious. This remote doesn't stop the explosives. It starts the final countdown. Everyone looked toward the blinking timer. 1:59, 1:58. They had less than 2 minutes left. Then the technician shouted. The only way to stop the explosion is from the control room. On the top floor. The bomb technician pointed toward a narrow metal staircase. The control room is at the top. But only one person can make it in time. Without hesitation, Emily started running. Her father grabbed her arm. It's too dangerous. She looked him in the eyes. If I don't go, none of us will survive. The judge raised his voice. Go! We'll cover you! Emily raced up the staircase as the timer echoed through the observatory. 1:12, 1:11. Below, Victor Kane suddenly smiled. You'll never make it. Everyone turned toward him. The control panel is protected by a voice lock. It only accepts my voice. The investigator grabbed Victor by the collar. Then you're coming with us. Victor refused to move. The investigator dragged him up the stairs by force. They reached the control room. A red screen flashed. Voice authorization required. Victor laughed. I'd rather die than help you. The timer dropped. 0:32, 0:31. Emily looked around desperately. Then Sarah Collins noticed a microphone connected to the security system. She remembered something. 12 years ago, Victor recorded emergency access commands for the hospital. She pulled the old flash drive from her pocket. It contains his original voice recordings. The technician quickly inserted the drive into the control system. A loading bar appeared on the screen. 15%. 38%. 67%. The timer reached 0:10, 0:09. Everyone held their breath. Would the system accept the old recording before time ran out? The loading bar stopped for a split second. 92%. The timer screamed across the screen. 0:05, 0:04. Emily closed her eyes. No. Suddenly. Access granted? The technician slammed the red emergency switch. The countdown froze. 0:01. Silence. No explosion. The entire observatory shook for a moment, then everything went still. A wave of relief swept through the room. Victor Kane dropped to his knees. It's over. The federal investigator snapped handcuffs tighter around his wrists. It is now. Emily carefully handed the silver container to the judge. Your Honor, this belongs to you. The judge held it with trembling hands. For 12 years. I thought I'd never have another chance. Sarah Collins smiled through tears. My team still has the original treatment protocol. If the medicine is still stable, the surgery can be performed. 3 days later, the world's leading eye surgeon completed a 7-hour operation. Everyone waited outside the operating room. Finally, the doctor stepped out. The surgery was successful, but we won't know if his vision has returned until the bandages come off tomorrow morning. Emily squeezed her father's hand. One more night, and the answer they had waited 12 years to hear would finally be revealed. The next morning, the hospital room was silent. Judge Anderson sat upright as the doctor prepared to remove the bandages. Emily, her father, Sarah Collins, and the federal investigator stood nearby, barely breathing. The doctor smiled. Ready, Your Honor? The judge nodded. Slowly, the final layer of bandages came off. At first, everything was dark. His heart sank. Then a faint beam of light appeared. He blinked. The blurry shapes slowly became clearer. Tears rolled down his face. I can see. The room erupted with joy. For the first time in 12 years, Judge Anderson looked directly at Emily. So, you're the young woman who promised to make me see. Emily smiled through tears. I made you a promise, and I kept it. The judge turned toward Emily's father. For the first time, he saw the exhausted man standing in prison clothes. I'm sorry. I judged your case without knowing the truth. The federal investigator stepped forward with new court documents. Your Honor, all charges against Mr. Collins have been dismissed. He's officially a free man. Emily ran into her father's arms. The entire room applauded. But before the celebration could continue, a nurse rushed into the room holding an urgent envelope. It's from the Supreme Court. The judge opened it. His smile slowly disappeared. Someone even more powerful than Victor Kane had just entered the case. The room fell silent as Judge Anderson opened the envelope. It carried the official seal of the Supreme Court. He read it once, then again. Emily noticed the change in his face. What is it, Your Honor? The judge took a slow breath. The Supreme Court has reviewed the evidence. They've ordered an emergency hearing. Emily smiled. That's wonderful. But the judge shook his head. Not yet. He held up the final page. The order also says, every conviction I delivered during the years I was blind will now be investigated. The courtroom investigator froze. That means hundreds of old cases. The judge lowered his eyes. If my blindness was used to manipulate justice, then innocent people may still be sitting in prison. Emily looked at her father. We can't stop now. The investigator nodded. We've already arrested Victor Kane, but his network reached far beyond one hospital. Just then, officers entered the room with Victor Kane in handcuffs. He smiled despite everything. You think you've won? You've only uncovered one piece of the puzzle. The judge stared directly into Victor's eyes. Something he hadn't been able to do for 12 years. Then tell us. Victor laughed. I won't. Because the real mastermind has been sitting inside the justice system all along. The room fell into stunned silence. Who was the powerful person secretly controlling everything from inside the courts? Victor Kane's words echoed through the room. The real mastermind has been inside the justice system all along. The federal investigator stepped forward. Who is it? Victor smiled. I'll only testify in open court. 3 days later, the largest courtroom in the state was packed with reporters, judges, and federal agents. Judge Anderson entered, not as a blind judge this time, but with his sight fully restored. For the first time in 12 years, he looked directly at every face in the courtroom. Victor Kane was brought to the witness stand in chains. "State the name of the mastermind," the judge ordered. Victor looked around the room. Then he slowly raised his hand and pointed toward the front row. Gasps filled the courtroom. It was Chief Justice Robert Hayes, the highest-ranking judge in the state. "No," Emily whispered. The Chief Justice stood calmly. "This is absurd." Victor laughed. "You're the one who paid me to keep Judge Anderson blind. You knew he was about to expose your corruption." Federal agents immediately surrounded the Chief Justice. He tried to leave, but the courtroom doors slammed shut. The investigator held up a freshly signed arrest warrant. "Robert Hayes, you're under arrest for conspiracy, bribery, obstruction of justice, and attempted murder." The entire courtroom watched in disbelief. The most powerful judge in the state was being arrested in his own courtroom. The courtroom was silent as federal agents handcuffed Chief Justice Robert Hayes. Reporters rushed toward the doors. No one had ever seen the highest judge in the state arrested in open court. Judge Anderson looked directly at Hayes. "For 12 years, you hid behind the law while destroying innocent lives." Hayes remained calm. "You still don't understand." Judge Anderson frowned. "What don't I understand?" Hayes smiled. "You arrested the face of the operation, not the person who funded it." The courtroom froze. The federal investigator slammed a folder onto the evidence table. "We've searched every bank account connected to Victor Kane. More than $500 million was transferred from an anonymous offshore company." Emily whispered. "So someone else paid for all of this?" The investigator nodded. "Someone richer. And even more powerful." At that moment, Sarah Collins noticed a small envelope hidden inside the evidence folder. She opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph. Judge Anderson stared at it in disbelief. It showed him standing beside a smiling man at a charity event 15 years earlier. The judge's voice trembled. "I trusted him." Emily looked at the photograph. "Who is he?" The judge took a deep breath. "My oldest friend, Daniel Carter." The federal investigator's phone suddenly rang. He answered. Then his face turned pale. "Sir, Daniel Carter's private jet has just taken off. And it's leaving the country. If they didn't stop him within the next hour, the Rayon mastermind would disappear forever." Federal agents rushed to the airport. A police helicopter lifted into the sky as Daniel Carter's private jet accelerated down the runway. "We're losing him!" the pilot shouted. Judge Anderson looked through the helicopter window. "Don't let that plane leave!" The control tower immediately suspended all departures. For a moment, the jet slowed. Then, without permission, it turned sharply and continued toward the runway. "He's trying to escape!" the investigator yelled. Police vehicles surrounded the aircraft. With only seconds left before takeoff, the jet finally stopped. Armed agents stormed inside. But when they reached the main cabin, it was empty. "He isn't here!" The investigators searched the cockpit. The pilot raised his hands. "Mr. Carter left 20 minutes ago." "What?" "He switched to a maintenance truck and drove out through the airport's service gate." Emily's heart sank. "He fooled all of us." Just then, Sarah's phone rang. She answered it and turned pale. "It's Daniel Carter." The investigator put the call on speaker. Daniel laughed calmly. "You've spent 12 years chasing the wrong people. I've already transferred every dollar and every secret to a secure location." Judge Anderson stepped forward. "You can run, Daniel. But justice will find you." Daniel replied with one final sentence. "No, Judge. Justice is waiting for you." The call disconnected. At that exact moment, a police officer rushed into the room carrying a sealed envelope addressed to Judge Anderson. Inside was a handwritten confession, signed by someone no one expected. Judge Anderson slowly opened the sealed envelope. Inside was a handwritten confession. At the bottom, he saw the signature. Thomas Anderson. His own brother. The courtroom fell silent. The judge began reading aloud. I can no longer live with the guilt. Daniel Carter planned everything. Victor Kane followed his orders. Chief Justice Hayes protected him. And I gave them the third key. Thomas admitted he had secretly recorded every meeting with Daniel Carter during the past year. I wanted to make things right before it was too late. Attached to the confession was a small digital recorder. The investigator pressed play. Daniel Carter's voice filled the room. As long as Judge Anderson stays blind, he'll never discover who controls the courts. Another voice asked. What if Emily exposes us? Daniel answered coldly. Then make sure she never reaches the courtroom. Emily's father immediately stood in front of his daughter. The investigator stopped the recording. This is enough to charge Daniel Carter with attempted murder, conspiracy, and corruption. Just then, a police officer rushed into the courtroom. Sir! We found Daniel Carter. Everyone turned. Where is he? The officer swallowed hard. He didn't run. He's waiting outside. And he says he'll only surrender to the girl who promised to make the blind judge see. The courtroom doors opened. Daniel Carter walked in alone. No guards. No lawyer. No attempt to escape. He looked directly at Emily. You kept your promise. You made the blind judge see again. Emily replied. I also promised to free my father. Daniel slowly nodded. You already have. He turned toward Judge Anderson. I've spent years hiding behind powerful people. But today, it's over. He placed a thick black folder on the evidence table. Every bank transfer. Every secret meeting. Every judge, politician, and businessman who helped me. The federal investigator opened the folder. His eyes widened. This is enough to dismantle the entire network. Daniel lowered his head. I won money. But I lost my family, my friends, and my soul. Judge Anderson stood. For the first time in 12 years, he looked into Daniel Carter's eyes. You stole my sight. You tried to destroy justice. But today, justice sees you. He struck the gavel. Daniel Carter, Victor Kane, Robert Hayes, and every member of this conspiracy are sentenced to life imprisonment. The courtroom erupted in applause. Emily ran into her father's arms. Judge Anderson smiled warmly. You gave me back more than my eyesight. You gave me faith that justice can still win. As father and daughter walked out of the courthouse together, sunlight filled the steps. For the first time in years, they were all truly free. The end. If this story touched your heart, and you believe justice should always prevail, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for more powerful stories like this. We'll see you in the next story.